guys, welcome to the Homestead. So today we're going to talk about my last video on the bartering series, and that is talking about things I would never, ever want to barter. And those things including, I'm just going to give them to you right up front, and then we'll talk about each one in detail. Salt, ammo, coffee, spices, fuel, motor oil, and we'll also make a mention about BDUs. That's called battle dress uniforms at the end. So starting off first is salt. There's no way, now I can say there's no way I'd never trade any of these things. But, when it comes to like a life and death situation, okay, I'd be willing to barter and trade something if I needed to for life and death, except for coffee. No, salt, starting off with salt, I think salt is one of the most important things that you can have as an item to use. And it's one of those things that unless you live in an area where salt is mined or created or made based on salt springs or salt mining, it's just going to be hard to get that again until trade and transportation opens up once more. So if salt is hard to come by, or if it's basically non-existent, no, I'm not trading my salt. Salt is so important. And you can go back in history and just see how important it was. They say, salt is not, when something's not worth its salt, it's because salt used to be money at certain times throughout history. Salt is so very important. So salt is that first item I don't think I'd ever trade for anything. If I have salt, I'm going to keep it, okay? The next thing is ammo, and that's kind of depending. Like we talked about ammo before in one of the other videos, but if I have an abundance of a certain ammo and I need to trade for something and I really needed it, I could probably trade for that, maybe. Depending on the caliber, and what caliber it is for what weapon system I'm carrying or whatever. That's just depending. But if they're not making any more of it, or it's really hard to come by, or it's restricted at some point or something, what you got is what you got. And getting more of it just might not be possible. And so you have to really use that sparingly. So it makes the list of a possible item that I might never, ever trade, might never, ever barter with. But it depends. It just depends on how much of what caliber I have and the circumstances. So I include that on the list. Second one is coffee. Now, this one, the United States started off as an English colony, okay? And, we were all big on tea. And the reason coffee got so big was because at the time when our independence was declared, people threw off English tea and opted for this other thing called coffee. And it stuck. It just never, lost its popularity. It gained in popularity, and it's just something that's a staple for most Americans even today. And the reason why it makes the list of a non-barterable item if I have it is because it's all grown around the equator. And depending on where you live, you might not be around the equator. You might not have access to coffee trade. And so what are you going to do? And it's one of those things like alcohol that people really, really enjoy. Tea is another one. I'm not a big tea drinker, even though I do drink tea from time to time. But coffee is one of those things you just can't. You can make tea out of a lot of things. There's lots of herbs and stuff that you can grow here that you can make tea out of, good tea. So dandelion tea is one of my favorites. But like coffee, you just can't get any more of it. If trade stops, yeah, coffee's on the list. It's really hard to imagine ever getting coffee. Now, listen, there's lots of great places to get green coffee beans that'll last for a number of years, and then you can roast them yourselves, grind them yourselves, and it'll store for a good amount of time. You can store them for, I think, they say 3 and 5 years tops. They say after about 3 years or so, it can really go downhill quality-wise. But you can store it for a good amount of time. The green coffee. I think Maria's Coffee is a company that sells green beans. There's lots of companies out there that sell green beans. Maria's Coffee is usually, in my comments section, is usually one of the most popular ones. So check out Maria's Coffee. And if there's some other ones, you can leave a comment below and let me know where you get your green coffee. I particularly like roasting my own. When the oils come out of that stuff, it's so fragrant, and I like roasting my own. But coffee absolutely makes the list. So after coffee, spices. Again, we mentioned spices in another video. A lot of spices, a lot of well sought after spices are grown only around the equator or in tropical, subtropical regions. And if you don't live in those areas, a lot of the spices that you and I enjoy on a regular basis just aren't going to be had again. Black pepper, everyone enjoys salt and pepper, right? But black pepper is not grown here. It's grown in other places where, we don't live, at least if you live in North America. So the spices, it makes a great barter item, but it's also one of those things that if it runs out, you might not be able to get it again. And so it puts it on my list of things I'm not going to barter and trade for. So spices. Fuel. None of us really can build a refinery. I'm sure you probably could. If you had enough equipment, you can make a refinery on a small scale, but where are you going to get the oil from? Are you going to make your own shale oil? Shale oil is abundant in some areas, and there's also other oils, you can get out of the ground, the sweet crude. But really, the refining process is hard to control, and if you're living in an age where the sheep manure has hit the rotating oscillator, you're just not going to be able to get it, because those fuel sources that do exist are going to be basically controlled and highly regulated by whatever governments are existing and controlling at the time, because they want it first, and then whatever's left over, you might get some. And so if you do have some fuel stored up, it is what you got. You got what you got, and that's it. And you can get certain type of additives that you can add to your fuel to make it last longer. I think Staybill is a product that they offer out there that you can add to your fuel, your gas or your diesel, to make it last longer and to maintain its octane. So I think that's how it works. But there's products out there you can get. It's just one of those things that if you have what you have, use it sparingly, because once you run out, you might not be able to get more. And that means you won't be able to run your generators, you won't be able to run your vehicles, things like that, unless you have some sort of kit that you can install on an older vehicle that will accept things like homemade diesel and things like that. And a lot of the modern vehicles today can't do that. It's just not going to be possible. They don't sell kits for that. They're way too complicated, and the technology is way too advanced to be able to do something like that on your own. Anyway, so fuel makes the list. Again, depending. If it's highly regulated and you can't get it, if you can get it, well then maybe. Motor oil. This is something that comes up quite a bit too. Motor oil is one of those things I just don't think I could ever, if I can't get any more of it, I'm not trading it. I'm not going to barter with it. And I met a guy, really kind of turned the light bulb on for me. And that was, he basically saved all of his motor oil from his vehicle changes. And he reused it for things like gun oil, or he reused it for things like a bar oil for chainsaws. You can take the old motor oil from your vehicle and use that for bar oil for your chainsaw. So you can use it for lots of different things. And so saving your old motor oil is, very practical of an option to keep that stuff so you can use it for different things. It may not be good enough to run in a vehicle anymore, but I think a lot of people think that these things can't be used well past the time they actually can be used further, but than what they say. 3,000 miles, 5,000 miles, you can't use it anymore. It's definitely usable for something. So motor oil makes my list as something that if it's limited in quantities, it's hard to get, I'm not bartering with it, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to or when I'll be able to get it again. I hope that makes sense. So motor oil definitely makes the list, and it's something that would be well worth stocking up on, having a few extra oil changes worth of oil set aside that you can be able to use that for your vehicles or whatever. So motor oil. And then lastly, I want to make a comment about BDUs, battle dress uniforms. The best clothes, like working on a homestead, is hard work, especially when you're out in the briars and the BFs and you're out there doing stuff, working hard. Your jeans, the jeans that they make today, are not going to last. They still make a few good jean companies out there, but most of the designer style jeans, things like that, they're just not going to last. They will not hold up to good wear and tear. Battle dress uniforms made up of ripstop cotton, that stuff is awesome. I tell the story sometimes to people where one time I was being stupid and I did not have my chainsaw chaps on, and I was wearing just a pair of my winter BDUs made up of thick ripstop cotton, and I was cutting a branch up on a tree, and I let that thing come down. I released the trigger, and so but it was still turning, and it came down real quick and hit my leg, and that ripstop cotton stopped that chain. Okay, it wouldn't stop it if I had my finger still on the trigger, but because the momentum was still going, but it was slowing down. It did leave a little bit of a scratch on my skin. It went through, but that ripstop cotton stopped that chain from that chainsaw. Ripstop cotton is amazing, and the military uses it, and there's a reason why the military uses it, because it works. It's amazing stuff. It would be worth you stocking up on a few pairs of BDUs. I'm wearing BDU shorts right now. In fact, there was an old pair of BDU Woodlands that just had some holes in the knees, and so they were kind of wearing out, but everything else was good on them, so I just cut them off and made shorts out of them because they last forever. They're really well wearing, clothing pieces that you could have, in your stock and stores. And if you had a couple extra pairs of them out there, they would be well worth the barter and trade because people would really want a pair of clothes that they could use. People forget that clothing used to a long time throughout history has always been used as money itself. Good pairs of clothes were hard to come by, and so people used it as money. In the Bible, even it calls it raiment. And you can see examples, Samson being one where they traded raiment as money. And so lots of examples of money throughout history being used for clothing being used for money. So definitely, if there was some clothing that I would definitely have on hand and probably wouldn't trade for unless I had some extras of it, is Ripstop cotton BDUs, battle dress uniforms. Now they make ACUs, and I think, what's the Air Force one now? They call it, the Air Force has to be different. These ACUs, BDUs. I don't know. Someone will leave a comment below what they call the ones in the Air Force. I don't know. But still, Ripstop cotton, and it's good stuff. Absolutely good stuff. It'll hold up long term, no matter what is going on, rain or shine. It holds up real well, especially when you're working hard on a homestead. Okay, so those are my items that when I would not trade anything for, those are the items that potentially make my list. What are some of the items that you would never trade for? Maybe some barter items that you have stocked up on. You're like, you know what? I've got what I've got, and I ain't ever bartering or trading with it. It's just too valuable to me. Leave a comment below on what you think would be if it wasn't on my list. I'd love to hear from you. And so would others too, because it might give somebody else a really good idea of something they should have on hand. So, all right, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video and hope you enjoyed the series. If you're on social media somewhere and people talk about bartering and trade items, go ahead and refer to them. I'll put this in a playlist of barter and trade on the YouTube channel so you can share that with anyone else who wants to see it. And I'd really appreciate it. And then also be sure to check out our merchandise, teespring.com, our best-selling t-shirt, Stupid Should Hurt. Best-selling shirt of all time, bar none. I love this shirt because it's true. If we had a lot more hurt in the world, it'd be a lot less stupid. And we're about to see some chlorine hit the gene pool here pretty quickly. So hang on for that. But you can pick one up yourself at teespring.com. Links in the description below. I appreciate that. Also, be sure to check out our ad at the end on our Zervita Zeal. Definitely something you could have on hand for keeping your immune system up to par. A lot of great ingredients in that product, and that's why I use it. So, all right, guys. See you next time in the homestead. Bye. Hey, guys. I'm happy to introduce an American homestead sponsor, Zervita Zeal. Now, first off, I only accept sponsors from products that I use and believe in. My family uses Zeal mainly because we want to ensure a healthy immune system. You see, it's made up of only whole food concentrates and includes no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. The included sweetener is all natural from fruit and the stevia leaf. It's gluten-free, it's vegan, and it's kosher. In 2018, my youngest son was involved in a bike accident that resulted in the surgical removal of his spleen, and that's an important part of his immune system. And because we live on a farm, you can guess that having a healthy immune system for our family is very important. Some of the included ingredients are beetroot, chicory root, turmeric, moringa, blueberries, cranberry, goji berry, milk thistle, ginseng, alfalfa, broccoli, and so much more. It's these natural ingredients that can easily be made into a powerful and tasty drink that my family can make and feel good about. So sign up and give it a try today. Every purchase you make goes to help the homestead so that we can continue to make great homesteading videos for you. Link is in the description below. Go ahead, give it a try. Hey guys, did you know you can become a patron of an American homestead? They get access to private videos, and we send them gifts from the homestead that we make here on the homestead. And we also enter our patrons into special giveaways that are only available to them. And before you go, please check out these other great videos. Go ahead, click. Oh wait,